Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson here in Austin, Texas. Excited to be here with you. And we've got a very special guest on today's Note Closer Show. This lady is rocking it. She is doing amazing things with her own podcast. And I have been binging to it, listening to it. And I think she adds a lot of value, especially for all of us out there that are, I won't say struggling, but entrepreneurs looking to find our voice, looking to find our audience, looking to really kind of dive into what we want to do, not only in the short term, but also long term and our whys and our cause. So I'm honored to have the one, the only, the truly amazing spiritual entrepreneur, Miss Devi Adea, joining us today.
Thank you so much, Scott, for having me.
No problem.
It's an honor to be here.
Glad to have you. How's everything out in California today?
Beautiful and sunny and a little bit hot for this time of year. Lots of voting going on, I think. It's a good day.
Yeah, you know what? Exactly right. There's that's one of the big things. Today's voting day. What do they call it? Super Tuesday. I got my stuff done last week, so I can avoid the lines today out there. But for those that don't have the honor of knowing, you and I met at New Media Summit about a month and a half ago. It's hard to believe time flies, right?
So fast.
It totally flies so fast. But if got a chance to know you a little bit and listen to the show and listen to a lot of the people you have on there. And you've got such a diverse group of guests on there. So why don't I just shut my mouth for a second and let you tell our audience out there of entrepreneurs that are watching this live across Facebook and other social channels, and then also listening to it across our different audio channels. Who is Devi Adea and what is the spiritual entrepreneur?
Okay, well, that's a long question. But so I started off, I'll just kind of give you the little background story. Is that good?
Yeah.
So I started off, I grew up, for those of you, anyone out here from Washington, D.C., I grew up as a native Washingtonian. And I spent a lot of my early life kind of hiding a part of my voice. So I grew up in a very spiritual family. I like to call them a clair family, right? Clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, kind of a gifted family, and also a very successful in the world family. My dad was president of a bank. Grandpa was head of the FBI. He was head of state of the FBI, moved around a lot. And so for a long time, I hid this part of my voice. And I find that a lot of us as especially like thought leader entrepreneurs or people that are out here that are wanting to share our message and mission through a profitable business and platform, I think it takes a lot for us to get out and step out and share our voice. So I spent a lot of time doing the external thing. I went to Carnegie Mellon, got a dual degree in information decision systems and management, worked for Oracle in my early career as in high tech, and came to a place one New Year's Eve where I sat down and I wrote out my bucket list, right? And I was looking at a list from 2 years prior and I was like, wow, in 2 years of my life, I've done nothing of the things that I say are most important for me to do in my life, right? So I scheduled one a month. I went scuba diving, skydiving, traveled Europe, ran a marathon. I did all this stuff. And at the end of the year, I was left with this place of like, well, now what? Right? Have you guys ever been at that place where you're like, well, now what? And so I thought doing all of the external things were going to make me feel more fulfilled, and they didn't. And I took a long journey. I went to work for one of the leaders in the coaching industry, started my own coaching practice, and just explored a lot of different things until I came to the place to realize that what was missing for me was that part of my voice that I had stifled as a child. And that is how the spiritual entrepreneur was born. I decided one crazy night to launch a podcast on something that actually kind of terrified me to share, which is the spiritual side of entrepreneurship, or what I consider to be like that 99% of what really creates results in our lives. I know we do a lot of tactical, practical actions, and I'm all about that. I'm about getting things done. And I will say that when we come from the right place in our own consciousness or our own energy, that it really changes the results that we get from those actions that we take and makes life a lot easier. We move from like pushing the car versus putting gas in the car and letting it drive itself.
I love that analogy. I think that's a great thing because I think all of us struggle with this. And I know I struggled with it for years. I was so busy working in my business or on my business, I wasn't living really.
Yeah.
And those are the things that really puts the gas in the engine, as you say, to go do the fun things that, when I think we get so bogged down, I don't have the time, or I can't take the vacation. And we both are good friends with Phoebe. I think Phoebe's on here saying hi out there this morning about how her travels and stuff like that. It adds so much. It adds so much. So you took some of your amazing trips. What was the favorite thing that you did in that year?
I think all of it was pretty amazing, actually. But yeah, traveling around Europe was pretty great for me, I have to say. Just and I pretended I was Canadian. I know it's terrible, but I didn't. I wanted people to like me. It was terrible. I was like, I can't. I was with the Canadians, so I'm like, when in Canada and Europe, I'll just pretend. But I had a lot of fun. I did a lot of adventurous stuff. The skydiving was amazing. I did it to get over a fear of heights that I had.
I've done that too. Totally the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I would go to the side of a hotel and I would look over the edge and I would shake. And so I thought this is not serving me. And I think that's true in our businesses too. When we come up against something, we need to find a way to the other side of it. So I literally like threw myself out of a plane 50 times, not just, once, but I decided to make it a thing until I wasn't scared anymore. And it felt like flying. So that was a lot of fun. The marathon I will never do again, but I can say I've done one. I can barely walk after. I'm not a small framed person. I'm more of a sprinter than a marathoner. So I would say all of it. All of it was pretty amazing. Yeah.
So, and let's dive into a little bit of that stuff, because I think we all struggle. Everybody struggles, whether it's getting into real estate, or it's launching a podcast, or it's working in a business and making a leap from an employee mentality to business owner mindset. And I can kind of see with what you talked about how you got somebody who runs a bank and you got somebody in the FBI about kind of being secrecy a little bit, or not sharing as much information. What are some tips that you would recommend to those that are struggling with that fear out there?
Yeah. So here's what I would say. I would say there's a lot of techniques, and I'll give you one that I use that's great, that helps me when I get scared. But the most important thing is to get a buddy. Like, when you go scuba diving, you wouldn't go without a buddy, right? Because if something happened to your mask or your regulator, whatever, you can have someone else you can share with, right? So I would say get a dive buddy when you're going to go into doing something, when you're sharing your message or your mission or something that you're super passionate about, that's in your heart and your soul. Get some community around you that support you, that see you and love you and honor you and will tell you to keep going even when it gets scary. And then for me with my podcast, it really I set a date. I was like, May 31st, 2016, I'm launching. This is happening. It launched at midnight on May 31st, 2016. At the end, I went to the very last minute that I could wait to do it because I was terrified and I didn't want to share that I was spiritual with the world. I came out spiritually on iTunes, right? Like I was scared to do that. So I would say that. And then for me, one of the practices that I personally use is before I go do something. So let's say that I'm going to go do a presentation, or I maybe have an interview where I'm interviewing someone that I'm a little awe-inspired by, or something's happening where I'm just kind of feeling that anxiety about doing something. Or maybe you have a board meeting. Maybe you've got a big client that's going to close, a listing that's going to sell. And you're like, I want to make sure I don't screw anything up. And you've got all that conversation. What you can do is when you're not in that experience, prior to the experience, is really just go into a private space, close the door, sit down, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, and imagine in your mind's eye what that experience will be like. So maybe you're in that meeting, in the closing, and someone's there and you've got the documents in front of you, right? And maybe there's an issue that needs to get handled. And just imagine all of the feelings that are going to come up for you around that. And rather than resisting them, because when we resist something, we actually energize it. We don't even realize it, but we're putting energy into it with our resistance. Rather than resisting it, allow it to be for a while, just for a little bit, and say, look, come on up, feelings. What is it that you're here to teach me? I'm going to listen to you right now, and I'm giving you your time. And without trying to push it away, but just letting that be there, embracing it, what you'll find, if you don't try and get rid of it, you don't try and change it, you don't try to shift it, but you just witness it, you'll find that it starts to loosen its hold on you and it starts to move through you. And when you can get to a place of gratitude where you're like, thank you for being my teacher. What is it you're here to teach me? Listening to the message and letting it go through, you'll find that that doesn't show up for you when you get to that meeting, and that the meeting goes very differently. So that's one of the techniques that I love to use, especially if I'm going to go and do something that scares me and I'm worried about my voice locking up or shaking in front of people or whatever it is, right? It really helps. So
that is some great stuff there, because take it a second to center yourself and not be so scared of the worst possible thing, but kind of let it come. And why am I scared? What am I learning from this? And the whole visual aspect of how could it go well? And and just rolling with it. And that's such a big thing, because I think so many of it, and I deal with this on a daily basis with our coaching students.
Yes.
You know, they're not going to send an email out to their database because, oh my God, somebody might actually respond. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Or I'm not going to send an email out to asset managers and banks because I don't want them to send me any deals. It's counterproductive, but we are such in a habit of often looking at the worst possible thing and taking that way left field kind of worst possible case result of things versus thinking about, okay, what happens if it actually works? You know what I mean?
Yeah. What happens if it works? And what is the stuff that I'm saying to myself? I think most of us kind of shut down and turn off that, like we don't pay attention to, even though it's running the show, the conversation that's in our head. Like right now, you're probably evaluating everything that we're saying here. You're having this, well, I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that. And oh, I remember when that happened. You have some kind of conversation probably going on in your mind. And a lot of times we don't pay attention to what that conversation is that we're having with ourselves all day long. And we can actually make the time to listen to that and start to shift that conversation with empowering questions and empowering focus. It can change how we experience our life and the things that happen in our life experience. And I know, Scott, you do this and you're a master of all of this and at creating extraordinary results. So this is probably not that new to you, but maybe if you're listening in, it's sometimes nice to have reminders, right? To have the reminders of all of that.
It totally is. And I think I'm not afraid to face my fears. I actually run head first. That's why I got such a big, thick, round skull here from banging my head against my fears for people out there. But I just realized a long time ago, look, if I just dive into it, I'm going to learn more from failure. I'm not worried about failing on something. I'm going to discover something. Either it's going to be a strength or a weakness as I'm going through it. Great. If I'm great at it, awesome. If I'm not, let me see if I can't delegate it out to somebody else and go from there, right?
Absolutely. And you said something really important earlier when you're talking about managing our energy out. That wasn't the words that you used, but you're basically saying, we can get so into it that we don't make time for other things. And when we have all that noise going on all the time, it's hard to actually hear that conversation or to make the space for that. And, kind of using the analogy of running, if you think about it, if you're like trying to do sprints in your business, but you're sprinting 7 days a week, 365 days a year, your sprint's going to slow down. If you're a sprinter, you got to take a break, right? And so making space in your schedule. I was just at an event where they were talking about having a 4-day work week. And I'm kind of trying it on. We'll see how it goes. But taking off some time in your schedule where you have to really kind of be more discerning on the things that you're bringing into your week, the things that you're scheduling in your schedule, the stuff that you're doing during your main day. And then what are the habits you're going to put in place that keep you on track? And what are you going to do on the weekends when you have that time off? To be present in your life. It's our why, right? It's why we're doing stuff. So
you hit some very good points there, but a 4-day work week is something that I would love to strive to. And I just need to cut back here because people are like, man, Scott, you're all over the place. I'm like, wait a second. My calendar is structured creatively. And I think we have to sometimes say no to things that we want to say yes to have yes in the long run, right? Because I think we're all guilty of the whole sprint burnout.
Yes. I've been sprinting a lot lately. I just got home from a long trip. I'm like, oh, I'm home. This is what my house looks like. Right. I'm working on this myself, let me tell you. So,
well, that's the thing. That's the great thing is I think the thing is we get so afraid of what failure might look like that we stop doing it all. And then if we do fail, it's just a fraction of what we thought it would be. And it's not nearly as bad along the way. And Laura Blunk out of here, one of our students, says sometimes the fear of success isn't so much, can I do it? But once I do it, can I keep it?
Yeah.
Can I keep doing it? That's a really great quote there, Laura. And that's the biggest thing is I see is that a couple calendars behind you on your right-hand side behind you there?
It sure is. It's the rest of the year. I have to get my new setup for 2019. But yeah, I used to have them all covered with all 12 months because I'm hyper visual. So being able to see the things that are kind of the big chunks of what I need to do. But I was thinking for next year, I'm going to put little highlights on the 4 days. To give me kind of a guideline, kind of like the airlines when they pull the planes out with the here is your 4 days.
This is all you can get done in the 4 days. This is all you can do. But I love it because I can see from here. Yes. And I'm going to take mine off the video so people can see here. You've already got spots on the calendar. They're blocked out or sticky notes on those stuff.
I do.
And I've got my calendar here in the office that I'm looking at almost on a daily basis. That's got stuff crossed out. Like I have a 3-week trip, 3 to 4 week trip in the end of May and June already crossed out. You know, I'm speaking in the Bahamas in January, which is kind of a tough thing, right?
That sounds like a really rough talk to have to give.
4 days in the Bahamas at the Atlantis. I'm speaking one day, show up for a few dinners. I'm actually speaking virtually on another event all the way across the country one of those days as well too. But the thing is if you kind of organize things and plan it, you know, I think we're all guilty of putting our own rewards on the very back end. We take care of everybody else, but we don't take care of ourselves. And that really burns our spirituality out, because at some point we get jaded or we get a little upset because we're seeing other people have success, and because they just make it a priority, right? We just have to make it a bigger priority for things, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and being present to those, like I call it leaving space for grace. Like I think when we are so focused and like doing, we don't leave space for the things that are nothing we would have thought of on our own, right? When we can create those pockets in our life for the magic to happen, usually for me, those are the up levelers that come way faster than anything that I would have done on my own had I been just kind of sprinting along all the time, trying to run half pace, right? So,
yeah, I love that. Space for grace. Now, you have had some amazing interviews.
Yes.
On the Spiritual Entrepreneur podcast. For guys that aren't and gals out there have not listened to it, go check it out. It is National November Promote Podcast Month, so check it out. Yay. Great stuff there. What's been some of the biggest surprises from you having the spiritual podcast or Spiritual Entrepreneur podcast?
Well, for me, I think I'll just say the biggest gifts first. One of the biggest gifts for me was actually seeing that other people do the stuff that I was afraid to do. Like I found out that there's a whole world of people out there that do what I wanted to do, but I was terrified to do. And that's one of the gifts of having your own podcast is you start to create a platform for the conversation that you're most passionate about, right? Like, you know, Scott, like you're talking about the things that really matter to you. That's your life purpose, your work, right? And that's why, you know, I do this podcast on purpose stuff. That's part of my curriculum. And I want to have you on the show. It's called Podcasters on Purpose. It's launching soon, so I'll have to talk to you after. But and the spiritual entrepreneur. Yeah. But basically what happens is when I get on there and I listen to all these people talking about what they do and realizing that that's what I want to do, it helped to give me some belief that I didn't expect to gain, you know, and having conversations like I think one of the ones that was kind of unexpected that someone had referred me to was the mom from E.T. Like, did you guys ever see E.T.? I mean, maybe I'm dating myself, but it was a big movie for me when I was growing up.
Yeah, E.T. Phone Home. E.T. Phone Home, yeah.
And yeah. and I remember I felt like little Drew Barrymore talking to her. I was having this great experience. But what I realized is, you know, there's a lot more people in the world that are doing the spiritual consciousness side of things that just don't talk about it. Like there's so many people that have success in their lives that don't actually talk about the behind the scenes. They kind of keep that quiet and they just focus on the tactical, practical pieces. And with bar none, everyone that I've seen that's a successful spiritual entrepreneur has some kind of presence practice. And that could mean that they are like listening to classical music in the morning and journaling. It could mean that they're out running in nature and kind of connecting with nature. It could mean that they're deep in prayer. It could mean that they meditate. It could mean that they, you know, do some creative practice in the morning where they connect in. But all of them have that. And I thought that was really interesting. And I bet that more of us that are creating success in the world are doing that than we tend to admit. And that is actually one of our superpowers. And the more that we do it, the more that space for grace shows up, the more connected we are. I liken it to being, if you're doing a download from the net, you want to make sure that your Wi-Fi speed or your network connection's good. And taking that time every day for creating that space for grace keeps that connection really tight so that you can download things. It keeps that broadband open, right?
So good. So good. And I use the hashtag woo-woo behind the work because you're saying that and I'm going, okay, what is it? So like what I like to do is my work week. If I'm here in Austin, like I just finished up an hour ago with my trainer. My trainer comes over, we work out for an hour,
awesome.
Shut down and everything, leave my cell phone in the office. And it's just knocking that hour out for me. But I also think about like on the weekends, one of the things I love doing is going to the movies and shutting the brain off, right? Yep. Shuts it off for 2 hours, but it's often a great marketing thing because I'm shut off and I'm open to seeing images like, oh, I'm going to use the Note Civil War when the Marvel movies came out, or Note Man instead of Ant Man, and goofy stuff like that. But then I also think about like it's Friday night. I'm sitting outside my patio. It's quiet. It's dark. The wind's moving. The wind chime's going. I got a nice drink, and then I got a really good. I like a good cigar. Just sitting out back having just for 3 hours. Me and myself and I, the three of us, kind of honing in and relaxing. And I had like 3 ideas pop out of it. It's because my Wi-Fi connection was there for the woo behind the work to kind of work with it, right?
Exactly. I love that. And I think that's like a ritual. Like it's a power ritual for your business. So when you take that time, we think of it like we're just relaxing, but the truth is we're moving forward on our life mission. We had a guy who he used to go into, and he called it towel time. He'd go into the bathroom and turn on the shower like on full steam, right? So it's like really hot. And then he would put a towel over his head and he would take out some trade rags and he'd read the trade rags. And then he would like take out a calculator. He'd like listen for ideas and he'd take out a calculator and he would jam the numbers. And he was doing very well as, I think maybe $4 or $5 million business or something at the time, like doing well for himself. And most of the ideas came out of towel time, where he'd go in and sit down and crank the numbers. And so I think having that time in our schedule is so important. So if you're listening in and you're kind of having that inner inkling, like, oh yeah, I kind of need to add a little extra time, or I'm running, and I've forgotten, what it's like to have some time with just me, or whatever that conversation may be, I really invite you this week to like sketch that out, carve that out, make that time. And especially for 2019, put on your calendar, because it will make a huge difference in your business and your life and your joy and your fulfillment too.
So true. The minute I started taking a priority of what I wanted to accomplish, that hour a day, and then whatever because I can immediately go to the gym here. It takes like 5 minutes, and then it's like the 30 to 45 minutes afterwards to get, showered up, something to grab, eating back in the office at 2:00. I don't run to the afternoon lulls. I can work later in the afternoon if I need to knock stuff out. I'm more productive because we're learning to delegate, and I'm fresh versus dragging through the end of the day, right? So go ahead.
I was gonna say, you are the king too of like delegating and managing that stuff. I'm really impressed with you. I know we got to work on International Podcast Day, and you're like, my team's amazing. Because I'm like, oh my God, thank you for doing all this stuff for everyone. And you're like, my team is amazing. And I was really inspired by that, because I'm actually working on having more team in my own life. I've, been outsourcing and handing off a lot, which took me a while for someone who likes to, I can do that really well, or, whatever that conversation is. So, so that inspires me about you too, Scott. I really love the way that you delegate.
Well, I should delegate more, I will tell you this. But Shannon, who handles a lot of my marketing, did a phenomenal job with all the infographics. And when you have 30 plus entrepreneurs like you and everybody else, like Steve, who's on here, and then Phoebe on there as well. Yeah, it's pretty easy because you don't have to herd so many crazy cats. You just got to herd cats, but not crazy.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you.
Shannon's a great guy. She's been like shaking her head at me because I have a big event coming up next weekend with 30 plus speakers over 3 days. And I'm like, here's the schedule. Like, no, this person canceled at the last minute. And she's like, and I'm like, you're doing a great job. Thank you. 90% of everything you're doing is great. It's me. I'm the 10% that's failing here. But you mentioned something as we were getting rock and roll, and how you were delegating out like your Instagram out to assistant to help out some of the things. Now, how long has that been a priority for you to do?
So, well, define priority. No. Yeah. So
how long have you been wanting to do that?
So I've been wanting to do, so I hired a VA in the Philippines, which I found this site called onlinejobs.ph, which was fantastic. And I tried a couple, and I learned this thing from Dr. John DeMartini. His work, he talks about, he was on a guest on my show. If you have a chance to listen to his interview, he'll blow your mind. But he was talking about, how, when you align your values with what you're doing, like that it really has an impact. So he said, if you're going to interview someone, ask them how the work that you're doing, or the work that they're going to be doing for their job description, is completely aligned with their values. So how does this fulfill your most important value, whatever that is? And you ask them what it is. What's your most important value? What do you value most in life, right? And so the first person that I had interviewed, I didn't know this. I said, so why is it that you're wanting to do this? How does this fulfill on your top priorities in your life? She's like, well, I want to get a MacBook Pro. I was like, that's not going to last a long time. So like, it's really important. And then the next woman that I talked to is now my VA full time. She said, my son is my world. And everything that I do, I want to be able to provide for him. And this is perfect because it lets me do things from home on my own schedule where I'm working with him and I'm working with you and I can provide for him. And that's what I'm here to do. And I knew when she said that like, yeah, if he has a doctor's appointment, that may take priority over what I've got to do with her, but I also knew that she's very committed to the work that we're doing. So like paying attention to those things made a difference. So I outsourced the most critical thing for me first, which was my podcast show notes, my podcast posting. So I'm basically hooked up. Everything is online and ready to go through the end of the year. So she's handled all that. She does video editing for me and all of those pieces that were kind of the critical piece that I was spending way too much time doing. So I handed all that off.
What are you paying her an hour? I want to know this because that's what's the hourly rate? Curious.
It's really kind of cool. All right. So here's the thing. So when you outsource to the Philippines, the exchange rate actually pays for part of their salary because what happens is the money over here goes way farther over there, right? Yep. So our dollar is worth a lot more than say the Philippine currency, whatever that is. So it's a good wage for her, but it's only $3 and something an hour. It's like $3 something an hour.
So I pay
her $150 every 2 weeks. That's it.
And I pay $75 a week.
Yeah. And she does it's insane what she does for me. And I found a great way to pay too called TransferWise, that if you're looking for a way to pay people in the Philippines, through onlinejobs.ph, you can pay them directly, or you can use TransferWise, which is a great software where they give you a good exchange rate on the money when you're paying them over there. So yeah, it's fantastic and it's super cheap. And I'm going to probably hire another person that, for our money over here. I mean, think about that. $75, you may pay someone 2 hours or something to do, I don't know, the work that I'm having done over there. And she's just amazing. And for her, it's a good wage. It's something that's very affordable for me. And so I encourage you to check out some of the outsourcing that you can do overseas for things. I do go in and kind of check out my show notes a little bit because there are colloquialisms here like that aren't so over there. Like if you think about England and us, they say, would you like me to knock you up in the morning? It means something very different over here, right? Where there it means to wake up, right? Same kind of thing with the Philippines. And here, there's different ways that people, communicate, but they have very good English, and they're just good, hardworking people. I mean, so highly, highly recommend that. And to answer your question, I've wanted to do my social media for a while, and it's just not been the critical system. But now we actually met last night and we're putting together a whole social media programming plan. And we're going to look at that for the new year. And then I'm going to mix in, I'm doing something called circular virality that I learned from Brendan Burchard, where you do videos like 8 days a week, 8 in a day. Sorry, 8 in a day. And then you take the video and you repurpose the content, the audio for a podcast, the video for the video platforms. And then you use the transcriptions for articles and that sort of thing. And you can use the text as well, quotes for memes and things for social media. So, and then circularly virality, you share them across platforms, you link them. So I'm looking at bringing that in the new year as well. And that's something I will be handing off. I found a great app too, by the way, if you guys are looking to do Instagram. I'm a little bit of a tech nerd. I apologize. It's part of my background.
Okay.
Spiritual entrepreneur and techie nerd. Okay. But it's called Plan, PLANN. And you can actually it's not very expensive. It's like $4 or $8 a month, depending upon what you want to do. But you can actually schedule your stories and you can plan the visual grid of Instagram so that you can put the posts in there and move them around. So I just went and I got that as well. And it also has statistics. You can look at hashtags of other people who have similar offerings to you and start utilizing the ones that are more popular. It's pretty cool. And I'm not an affiliate. I just found that like yesterday.
No,
so
you're in that. I found something cool. I want to share it mode, right?
Yeah.
So, that's good. I love that. So I want to come back here. First and foremost, Devi Adea says, "Hey, lady."
Hey.
And he agreed with it. No doubt, we spend thousands monthly for support people in North America. So I let's bring it back to the spiritual side, because the thing is, on the side, because I think a lot of people just completely say, "Well, I don't have the time for that," right? So to do, if you figured out what you're having your VA do, how many hours would that take for you to do a week?
Oh my God. She's probably given me back. I mean, with all the work that I was doing just on my podcast alone, she's probably, NVIDIA, I gotta say, she's probably given me back at least 2 days a week, at least 2 days a week
So
for me.
how many hours a week, at least?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So let's just say 80 a month or so. And, for me, like that's, it's ridiculous that I wouldn't be paying $3. I mean, even the US rates, it's silly that I'm not doing that before, like the US. So, I mean, I highly encourage you, like, if you want to up level in your business, I don't see any way. Like I was doing everything, and trust me, I'm right and left brain balance. So I can geek out on the tech stuff. I can do the business stuff. I can do like all of it. I'm good at. However, that doesn't mean I should be doing all of it. And you're probably the same, if there's everything that you can do, the way that you're going to up level to the next level is you've got to outsource and get the time to do the things that only you are good at, those top 3 things that are your genius and your superpower, and then find someone else that can do the rest. So I can't outsource the interviewing. That's part of my genius. But I can outsource the show notes, the editing, the posting, the tagging, all that stuff. I don't have to do that. Someone else can do that. Right. So, finding what's your unique core business pieces that your unique superpower aligns with, just focusing on those and getting help. And there's no excuse at $3 an hour. I mean, really, like you could just start with a day if it's really challenging for you, and then work your way up. But I mean, you could truly get a full-time person for you for a very affordable amount of money. And I think even like the high-end people that have been doing it a long time are like $8 to $10 an hour. So
So let's look at because one of the big things I always tell people is like figure out if you want to go big things, you want to make $1 million or $500,000, figure out what that works out as far as your hourly rate, right?
Yes.
Okay. And if you're now got somebody that you can pay $3 an hour versus you being worth $50 an hour, you just put $47 in your pocket.
That's true.
Or you really cloned yourself. Now you can go do the $50 or $100 an hour activities of the interviewing or more business development or other things, or finding the time to relax, finding the time to take a trip, because for $24 a day, 8 hours a day at $3 an hour, that's $24. Jesus, there's some drinks in Vegas that are $24 a drink, right?
Some Uber ride somewhere fancy. I don't know. There's something. And if you have any concern, go ahead. Sorry.
I just was saying is the excuse that I don't have time or don't have the money just really, unfortunately, does not exist. What it comes down to is that we don't pride our time valuable. And I know this, and I'm not sitting here throwing it out there. There are things that I have to do better with my company and what I want to do to get where I want to be more so level up, as we said, and that's what things we're focused on. But I love what you just shared out there about taking that and really spending the time to focus on, to train them, go through your plan versus just throwing them at a cause and expecting them to figure out. No, you're taking the time to spend a day. Here's what we want to plan out. Here's how I want A to Z to go. SOPs, standard operating procedures for them, so that they can do their job the best, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give you guys a couple more tools, because I know sometimes we're like, well, how do I work with someone that's overseas? I have a conversation about that if you have one of those. There's 2 tools that are great. I use Asana. If you're a yogi, you'll want to call it asana, but it is actually technically Asana. I mess that up all the time. Or Trello. Those are both great places where you can actually create boards where you share projects and calendars with them. And that's worked really well. I use Asana. And then another thing is if you want to train them and you're wanting to visually show them something, there's a tool, it's free. It's called Use Loom. And you can literally just shoot a quick little video and it links in, put a link in your email and shoot it off to them. So anytime you want to teach them something, you can do that. And then you can stockpile those videos for if you want to have someone else come on to create more of the SOPs for your business, like just have those even in a Dropbox folder with a name on them. I'm super big on systematizing. So like that's one of the other things that keeps me sane in my life. So, so as you're doing the outsourcing, you can start to stockpile, and that actually helps you too for later for training other people, having those systems in place. And then one last one is LastPass.
Hang on. What was the website again, so I can put it in the video?
Which
here.
one? Okay, useloom.com. Useloom.
LOOM.
LOOM.com. Useloom.com. And then Asana is ASANA.com. And then Trello is TRELLO.com. And then LastPass is also a great thing. So if you're worried about sharing passwords with people, for example, overseas or anywhere, you can use a software called LastPass.com. And it will basically, you can just share the access, and then it'll automatically fill when they have LastPass on their computer. So that's another security precaution for you when you're working with people overseas. So just some thoughts.
Good stuff there. Good stuff there. What are some of the things that you've got on the calendar for 2019 to help you center yourself or help you find the spiritual entrepreneur for you?
Spiritual entrepreneur stuff. This year, actually, on my birthday, I'm taking a week to go with my mother. We're going to go to Northern California together, which is kind of some of my centering time. My birthday is the 26th. So I've got that scheduled. As far as next year, mostly I think it's what I'm not putting on my calendar. I've actually been really mindful not to put a lot on my calendar. So I've got my Friday, Saturday, Sundays blocked off because I'm trying out this 4-day work week concept. I'll let you know how it goes. So far, so good. I've done it for half a week, but I'm trying it out. It was new to me. So I'm doing that. And then I'm really being mindful of the different events and things that are coming up. I'm really looking forward to going back to the New Media Summit and doing that again. And meeting those people. And that's going to be happening is that February? I think it's Steve.
I have it on the calendar. I will be there as well. It's in
yay!
The 21st through the 23rd.
Awesome.
February outside of Tampa.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Oh, and some fun around that. So my friend was a dolphin trainer. And so after that, we're actually getting in a car. We're driving down, I think, if we have to see how far it is. If not, we'll take a plane to the Keys, and she's going to let me swim with the dolphin. So that'll be something that'll be kind of a fun thing for me too. So those kinds of things, just putting in the time around the work that we're doing and making sure to be mindful of the things. And are they multipliers for your business? Are they things that really are in alignment with your message, your mission, your calling, and why you're here? So for me, it's more, I think, going to be about what I'm not putting on the calendar than what I am putting on the calendar, because there's always so many opportunities, and just being more discerning, I think, for me is a big thing right now.
Do you think it's valuable to start saying yes to more opportunities versus trying to find excuses not to do them?
Depends upon where you are. I mean, if you're someone who's starting out and you've been saying no to everything because you're scared of your own shadow, and I've been there, right? We all go through that kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm who am I to do that? That conversation we have of, really? Who am I that's not me. Yes, it's you. You're being asked for a reason. Listen. So I would say if you're in that place where you have been saying no to a lot of things, then I think there is a huge value in saying yes. However, if you're on the other extreme and you've been saying yes to a lot of things and not taking the time just to be more discerning and have your own boundaries and focus on what's most important for you, then I would say that's when you need to focus in on maybe saying no to more things. And I find that actually creates the space for more of the things that you need to be doing in your business. I had a guy, I was at this 4-day work week workshop, and this guy was saying he runs 4 businesses in 4 days. So we have no excuse. Like, we really, if someone can run 4 businesses in 4 days, we all have the same amount of time. What he said to me is, look at what your goal is and then reverse engineer what is it that's going to get you to that goal, and only do those things during those 4 days. Really focus in. So if you're in a place where you're feeling kind of spread out and scattered, and you're not having the space for grace, you're not making the time to know where you live, that's the time that you're going to want to definitely to say no to more things and say yes to the things that really make a difference for you.
That's good stuff. Good stuff out there. Nancy Conrad. Hey, Nancy. Been using LastPass, but didn't know we could share access without sharing the password. Great tip. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's huge there, especially when you have staff that's either locally or internationally, or not local wherever you're at. That's a great thing. I got to spend more time on that as well, because I usually just create a basic password that's easy to remember and share it. And then if they leave, okay, we'll change it to another simple password on there. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Jim, what did Jim just say? Jim Padilla says, just killed a project that is 100K rev stream this morning. Our ops manager said no and pointed us in a different focus area.
Way to go, Jim. Wow.
Jim,
High five.
there he is. So smart. And Jim and I had a great talk there at the icons, because you and I are both icons
Yes.
uh, with New
Of
Media Summit.
influence. Yeah.
There you go. Icons of influence. I didn't know what that was, but I was one, which is great until we get there. But Jim was talking about how he was struggling with focusing on a lot of other people's stuff versus his own stuff.
Yes.
And I said, listen, if you want to get where you want to be ultimately, because he had the same thing, him and I got the conversation about where do you want to focus? Where do you want to get? He goes, well, I want to get to it. So, well, you're not going to do that by focusing on everybody else's stuff and putting yourself last. Okay. And he's agreed. And it looks like he's obviously taken the run at it and doing some great things about it, which is awesome.
No, Jim is a rock star. We love you, Jim.
We do too. Exactly. Jim, I got to have him on here at some point. So let's, my freaking phone over here. What I love about well, yeah, if it's not those Medicare prank callers, hey, we've got Blue Cross Blue Shield for you now on those things. What I wanted to get at here is what has been probably the most surprise from your interviews on your podcast.
Most surprise. I think
the thing
really
that shocked you the most.
The thing that what?
Kind of shocked you the most from your interviews.
I would say for me, it was really starting off with that, just realizing more people do the spiritual stuff. Like I didn't realize that I was not as alone in the world as I thought, right? So I think that was really shocking for me. And I was actually pretty surprised at how much I already knew. Like I found myself being able to talk to a lot of different people and realizing, wow, I didn't realize how much I had developed myself over the years and what I had to offer in exchange too, like realizing, oh wait, I could take that to another level, or there's this thing, that I kind of get that, and thinking these are amazing experts in their field. So for me, it was just, I think, a lot of discovering for myself that what my subject matter was that I was so scared to share was actually something that a lot more people were doing than I realized, and that I had more of a foothold in it than I had even, was aware of. And I think sometimes we need that feedback from the world. And the only way we get it, if you're kind of holding back and not sharing that part of yourself, is to take that courageous step and speak it first.
Speak it and talk about it and share it. I think especially that's the hardest thing if you've got a company or a staff or spouse. Is true. I see a lot of people struggle going in different directions, and they wonder why, they're struggling, is that they're not sharing what their ultimate goals are and what they want to accomplish, and identifying joint opportunities there, right? Or
absolutely
working together towards a common cause versus it's hard to hit the target when one person's pulling this way, another person's pulling that way, right? Is there any advice that you would give to people out there that have maybe spouses that are maybe not supportive in what they're trying to focus on, or anything like that to help them overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, so I would definitely say get some dive buddies that are not your spouse, not to knock the spouse. I'd say we love our spouses. I have a spouse too, and he's right over there. He works from home as well. Get some other dive buddies though that do get it. Like I would say, surround yourself. I have people in my life that totally get what I'm up to, whether or not he fully understands everything that I'm doing at the time. He's just kind of like, oh, you do your thing. I get it. Right. There have been times that he's been like, I don't really get it. Right. So you need to just have the people around you that get you, that know you, that understand, that are supportive of what you're doing. Because I find that it actually starts to dilute some of any of the messages where they're coming from your spouse or anywhere else in your life that are not in alignment, is having kind of that core group of people that really get you, that know you, that kind of give you the affirmation that you may need. And then I would say, find a way to communicate in their values. So find out what it is that your spouse cares most about, and then find a way to communicate what it is that you're doing so that it's fulfilling on what their values are. Because if they can't make that connection, they're not going to be as supportive. But if you can be like, I get that by doing this, let's say they like to travel, I understand that, this may not make a lot of sense to you, but this is, the revenues that I'm making from it. And this means that we can go do this other thing, or, find a way to communicate inside of their values so that they get the benefit from it. If you're going to be gone a lot, right, and they value a lot of personal time, find a way to communicate in a way that they know that their values will be met. Because this is another thing I actually learned from John D. Martinez. Great interview. He said, when you speak into the values of another human being, you build love and affinity. And when you speak against the values of another person, you bring hatred and resentment. So if you're talking over here in your value system and they're talking over here in their value system, and you're not speaking the same language or connecting it to what matters, it's just going to create a lot of resentment. And so I would just say, find a way to communicate it in other people's value systems, especially your spouse. It helps a lot.
That's some good stuff. That's really good.
Thanks.
That's really good. We're going to have a special highlight of that aspect of things on when I'm doing marketing on this episode. That's awesome. Now, Devi, you also work with people and help them overcome things, don't you, as well?
Yes. I call myself a spiritual business coach, strategic consultant. I use different words for it, but basically what I help you do is I help you to deal with that voice in your head, put the structures in place in your life, and give you a lot of tools so that you can be really successful and go to whatever's the next level for you. And I'm just naturally, somehow, I've been told this, I don't know, it's one of my superpowers, I guess. I evidently build a lot of self-belief in the people I'm around. So there's a shift in your belief of self that happens for some reason when you're working with me. I've been told this time and time again. And so that's another thing that's kind of a byproduct. Don't know exactly how that gets transferred. It's not something that I intentionally do. It just happens. So.
Good stuff there. And you also have kind of a training program for people too that want you to find more information out and
yes.
Those, right?
Yeah. So there's a couple things I do. So I do things more on the personal development side and on the strategic business, spiritual business coaching consulting side. But I also help people that have a message or mission that they want to get out into the world. I help them launch their own podcast. So I have a course called Podcast on Purpose Online Academy, where I have an online course that helps you to basically go from idea to iTunes in 6 weeks and all the other major platforms. And then I also do VIP weekends where I walk you through that directly. I give you your equipment. We do the whole process and you're launched on the shows on Sunday. We start on a Friday. So that's one of the things that I help you for, just platforms, getting your message out. I also have a lot of tech recommendations if you're wanting to do your own courses or things like that. I bridge a lot of different worlds. As I said, I'm right and left brain. Yeah. Spiritual business, a little techie nerd in there. So I also work with people. I have recommendations for Kajabi. If you ever want to check out the platform I use for my course, you can go to kajabispecial.com and they have a trial there that you can use. There's just a lot of different things that I do. So, but mostly I'm just here to help people. If you feel like you have a message, a mission, and a purpose, and it's calling and pushing in your heart and your soul, or you're working in it and you're feeling like there's a next level for you, I help you to create the platform, the business around it, and work with the consciousness that makes all of the actions that you take move you way further than they would if you didn't do that work internally. And that's just one-on-one and in groups. So
that is good stuff out there, because I don't think there's enough people out there helping people find their passion and their purpose out there. And I think if we spend a little bit more time on that, we use some of the tools that you've discussed or some of the things you do, you have more time and you could implement that during your non-4-day work week, right? To focus on your project. So it's not work and being able to develop that. And that's some great stuff out there. Devi, you have been such an amazing guest. Thank you so much for all the goodies, the knowledge, the inside stuff out there. Is the best way for people to get a hold of you, just go to your website, deviadea.com.
Yes. So deviadea.com is where you can find all things about me and my courses and stuff. And then spiritualentrepreneur.com if you want to check out the podcast. Or if you're on iTunes, you can go to sepodcast.com for spiritualentrepreneur.podcast.com, and it'll take you to the iTunes page directly. But lots of different ways to find me. All of it, you can go to deviadea.com and find it. So
good stuff out there. Well, thank you so much. Hey, glad to have you on here. Look forward to hanging out with you in February as well here, catching up and seeing all the good stuff. So I expect by the time February rolls around,
yes,
Just 4 days. That's it.
4 days, 4-day work week. Yeah, I'll be able to tell you all about how that's been going for me and how much I love it. I'm seeing that I'm going to love that. And Scott, I just want to acknowledge you. I think you're extraordinary, exceptional. And I am so grateful that we got connected at the New Media Summit. And I know we had that little private mastermind afterwards. And I was just really impressed with your level of generosity and contribution and your wealth of wisdom that you have around business and around the work that you do. You're very inspiring. So thank you so much for who you be in the world and for having me today.
Oh, shucks. You're going to make me blush over here. No, thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's just I've been blessed with great people and great mentors. And if I can help anybody else succeed, that's part of the reason we started doing this show. The Note Closers Show, and helping people accomplish things and close deals or close enjoyment in their life out there as well, surrounding their business. So great having you on. Thanks again so much out there. And we'll see you later. All right, Debbie?
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right, guys and gals, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Note Closer Show. Hopefully you took some notes on that. If not, you're going to want to go back and hit replay. You can catch the episodes, like I say, on iTunes and all sorts of different platforms out there. If you want to catch the live video and you're listening to this on iTunes, Stitcher, and any of our multiple audio platforms, you can go over to the website, weclosenotes.com, check out the videos there, or check us out at any YouTube or Vimeo by just going to weclosenotes.tv. But once again, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for the comments from Jim, Phoebe, Laura. Where we had somebody else in there too with some comments on there. Nancy, thank you so much for sharing that there, guys. Do us the huge favor. Go check out Devi's podcast at spiritualentrepreneur.com. You'll love it. Leave a review, subscribe to it. And also, if you got some time, do the same for us here as well. Otherwise, guys, go out, take some actions, and we'll see you all at the top, everybody. Bye.